Hey you guys, it's Moonlander back with another horror book review. And today we're going to be looking at the 1986 book from Stephen King called It. So, if you've seen the movie, you got a general idea of what this book's about. And now while I was reading this book, I kept thinking to myself how close the TV miniseries that was made with Tim Curry held true to the book. And now when I finished this book, I watched that miniseries, and yeah, it does hold true to the book. It's just a really brief version of the book. So in the book, you get way more history of it. And you also get a lot of history of Derry. And now the book makes a lot of the story about the town of Derry and its effect on the town. So yeah, the story focuses quite a bit more about the town in the book. And now in the book you also get a brief part that kind of tells about the origin of it and how it came to be on Earth and in Derry. And you also get an opposing force to it in the book, which is not really mentioned too much in the movie. And you also get far more detail and description of all the characters. Now, yeah, I would say like the movie's probably like 1/100th of the description and detail that's included in this 1,200-page book. So the things I liked about it is I do find it to be a remarkable piece of fiction. I mean, it's pretty much just an epic type of story, and I just find the book as a whole an impressive feat for a writer to create. But for the things I didn't like about it is I just did not really enjoy this book. And now I do have to say I have bad feelings towards Stephen King. Now I've read probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 of his books throughout my life, and I did really enjoy some. But as I got older and the more I read of him, the less and less I liked Stephen King, to the point where I despise reading his books. And now the last one I read was Full Dark, No Stars, which is like 4 short stories, which they seem to be making into movies for Netflix. But anyway, I couldn't stand it, and it was basically the nail in the coffin for me as far as reading books by him. And I also later saw that they considered that Full Dark, No Stars to be from Stephen King's feminist genre, which I found repulsive. Just thinking about him writing feminist fiction, So anyway, I did tell myself that one day I would read it. Now I have an aunt that told me how scary it was, and I mean, I enjoyed the story. As far as the movie goes, I mean, the movie's kind of crappy, but yeah, and to see that spider again, oh my gosh, that's terrible. It's not aged well. But anyway, I always told myself I'd be open to at least trying to read it one day. And now with the new movies release, they re-released the book, and I bought it at Walmart. Yeah, I told myself, okay, I'll read this one, and maybe it'll rekindle an interest in reading some books by him. But no, it didn't. I have to say, I mean, I did finish reading this book, but I could only read 15 minutes to maybe an hour at a time. I did not ever feel like I wanted to keep reading, like I couldn't put it down. It was only mildly interesting, and there were only a handful of parts that I enjoyed reading about. And now most of these parts were through the perspective of the Mike Hanlon character, which is the black guy, librarian that kept in the town of Derry. And now in the book, he's writing sort of a history of Derry, and some of the stories he has are they are good and fun to read, I thought. And now, other than him, like, I just did not like the characters. And like, when you think of how goofy the adult parts are in the older movie, yeah, it's just because these characters are gonna be hard to translate to film. I mean, the things they say and their dialogue between each other, I just didn't like it. I didn't find any of them relatable, and I just didn't enjoy any of them really, other than the librarian guy. And now, of course, like half the books when they're kids. And to me, I felt like the kids in this book just felt unnatural and somewhat forced. And I didn't enjoy reading their characters either. And now, they're always laughing in the book, and I just didn't really even see what was funny at all at any time, and they're always laughing. And now, I did try to think of, like a child's sense of humor, but even then, like, I did not think the kids were well written for this book. So my final thoughts on it is I do realize I have a hard time judging this book, because if I had read it as my first book or in my first 5 of Stephen King, and I hadn't seen the movies, I'd probably feel a lot differently. But with my feelings on Stephen King and trying to look at this book even without my biased feelings towards him, I really don't think you're missing all that much by not reading this and just watching the movies. The parts that aren't in the movies just are not going to translate well onto film, and I don't think they're worth going out of your way to read about them. So I'm going to give it, well, it's a remarkable, in a way, piece of fiction. The fact that he wrote this huge story, with half of it being these characters when they're kids and when they're adults. I gotta give it some credit, but at the same time, I just didn't really enjoy this book. So I'm gonna have to give it a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next review.